Accept what is. Let go of what was. Have faith in what will be. Sonia Riccati.
James, that poem is it sounds very simple, but yet it is so profound. It sounds, anybody can listen to that and say, well, that sounds very simple, but yet it's so complicated. This has been a reality to you. Accept what is has been a reality to you for the last 5 years, and letting go of what was. Talk about that.
For me, accepting what it is, it was really easy for me to accept responsibility, all what was, or what is in that time period. Because I really didn't want to see, and why it was easy for me to take responsibility, because if it's my fault, I can fix it. I don't have to face the reality of what is. And so taking responsibility for it put me in control, in my perception of control, that I can fix this. That if I do one more thing, I can fix this. If I'm the blame, I can fix this. But at the end of the day, it is what it is, and you can't change it no matter how much responsibility you take.
And as you continue to take responsibility, all you're doing is actually hindering yourself from moving forward, where it talks about faith in what is to come. You basically were trying to fix what is because you had a dream and a vision, and it wasn't, the reality was completely opposite of what the dream and vision was that you had. So you were putting all your energies into fixing to get this dream and this vision to come true, instead of having faith in what was to come.
Right, because you didn't see what was coming because you saw what was in front of you. And in that, it could be a relationship that isn't what's going to be in the future. Could be a job position. But you do everything you can because that's all you see. That's all you're willing to see. Because it really is hard when we all change in life. We all are on a growth sphere. So you want to hang, and change is scary. Facing what is extremely scary.
But sometimes, yes, I would agree. It's actually letting go is the scary part, because sometimes why we don't accept what is and we continue to want to change that is because we have our emotions in the way that we're not aware is in the way. Because our pain from our childhood obviously becomes triggers and we carry it into our lifetime. So we'll continue to tell ourselves that we deserve this. Or we don't deserve to have, a great relationship or a great job. That's what we don't deserve. Or this is where I'm supposed to be. This is who I am. I continue to lie to myself that this is not who I am, but it is. All these emotions keep us in this place. So we become stuck instead of accepting that this is what it is and letting go of what was and moving forward into the future.
Exactly. And the word that comes to mind to me is we settle. We just settle. We settle for
relationships.
Settle for dog food.
Yes.
When there's steak out there, the dog food is very comfortable. It's not nutritious, but we're willing to settle. And another word would be conditioning.
Yes.
We condition ourselves for what is, what our perception is. And so we find a way to put ketchup on our dog food. We find a way to spice it up. But at the end of the day,
it's still dog
just
food.
Dog food.
Yeah.
But we're willing to settle for that. And so what happens when you settle for that, you give a piece of yourself away on a very subtle daily basis. But you don't see it. But again, well, if I put mustard on my dog food, so that'll make it better.
Well, Well, and a really great way of saying that, a really great way of saying you give a piece of yourself away, a really great way of saying that is every day that you're sitting and stuck in this place is one day less that you are being who you were created to be.
So the real question for me is what made me change. The heat turned up. Trauma happened. That realized
Your dog food started burning.
my I actually went to the hospital because I ate too much dog food.
There you go. There you go.
Something happened that forced me from settling because then I no longer could settle. Because at that point, what I thought was my core values got attacked. And I started giving a piece of myself and I started giving up my core values of who I am, who I was raised to be, and who I resonate with. They started getting conflicted. And then you had to start making choices to stay in what is, your perception of what is, or you need to move forward and lose your soul, or
Well, the thing was,
move into the unknown, which is the faith.
right. The thing of it is, James, you talk about your perception of what is. At that moment, your perception was no longer working. There was the reality. You had actual facts of what
That's
is.
when
You
the
could
heat
no
got turned
longer
up.
lie to yourself.
Yeah, that's when the heat got turned up.
When the heat got turned up, you could no longer lie to yourself. This is what it is.
And then you're forced, well, not forced, but you're in a position where you start feeling. You start feeling the violation. And you have no choice. Then you have to ask your question, are you going to violate yourself?
Are you going to
When-
continue to violate yourself? Yes.
Are you going to continue to go that path? Because now it's in front of you and it's affecting your core values. And what you're also realizing, because you hung on to what you thought what it is, you have become so far away from yourself of who you are. And you have made decisions and you are making decisions not as consistent with who you are. Your integrity is at stake.
Yeah.
And you're forced now to choose to hang on to that myth of what is, that you believe what it was.
Well, also, James, isn't it true that when you started realizing what is, and the truth was right in front of you, the facts was there, you could no longer be in perception. Now you faced character assassination. Talk about that.
Because in that situation, by not saying anything, you're moving forward and you're going to be assassinated in a sense because you're changing and you're starting to verbalize this is not right.
And when you change, people around you also have to change. But if they don't want to change, that's where the character assassination comes in.
Right.
They're going to have to put you, because again, it's no longer your little life here, your little fantasy world, your little perception is no longer a reality. So that means everybody within that can no longer, because again, when you're the one who's there and you change, it affects those that are around you. They
Exactly.
also have to change in order to stay in the relationship with you.
Yeah, there's conditioning on their end that they have relied on whatever position or whatever role you chose
Yes.
to fulfill in your relationships around you. And so when you say, this is no longer where I'm at, I'm moving forward, I'm moving into the next chapter, what you would want is that in a healthy relationships, they would champion that you're moving forward.
And would grow
And
right
you're-
alongside
and you're-
you.
and yeah, and you're saying no to them. And again, it could be a career, relationships, whatever. The healthy response to the people around you is saying, were really happy for you. The unhealthy relationships would look at it as a threat to them, or they're losing something, or the typical response. The typical response is, well, you got to do what you got to do.
Exactly.
A passive aggressive approach. It's not, I'm championing you. Yeah, you got to do what you got to do. But at the end of the day, it could be jealousy that's in that statement. There could be, who do you think you are? But at the end of the day, you're changing.
Yeah.
Depending on how important a relationship is, and if it was dysfunctional, where you were constantly on the giving end, that probably won't happen in a positive way.
No, that won't be very good because now they will have to also give.
Because you're also probably recognizing the violation to yourself that they also have a responsibility in.
You stop taking the responsibility. Exactly
Yeah.
what you talked about
Yeah.
earlier.
I'm giving them.
It's easier for you to take the responsibility because then you could stay in control.
Yes.
But once you started realizing how you're violating yourself, you're giving back responsibility where responsibility is due. But they didn't really appreciate that very much.
No, it doesn't work very well that way.
No.
Because you're saying that I'm going to factor myself in the equation, and I'm accepting what is. It hasn't been healthy.
Yes.
And again, I take responsibility for that. Most of the time, if it's an unhealthy relationship, they will not take responsibility for it. They're not going to champion you.
No, they're really not.
So
They're really not going to appreciate the new you or the enlightenment that you have. They're really not going to appreciate any of that.
So that also becomes very hurtful and painful. And so now the next part of that is let go of what was. You have to, first of all, you accept that that wasn't a healthy relationship. You evolved beyond that. So you were trying to put a square peg in a round hole, so to speak. And you realize it didn't work. Nothing you would do will salvage that relationship. So now, when you remove, and your hope is when you do verbalize and to the relationship to say put your boundaries up, that gets also very hurtful. There's things that happen in that the unhealthy part of it, it'll be very painful. Again, you always have to choose between two pains of change. When you change, you have to choose with the two pains. Continue to eat the dog food and continue to have the pain of the unhealthy relationships. Or you can move outside it and experience the pain of rejection, the character assassination. That's going to be a pain. You really can't get away from pain once you're willing to accept what is. There's no way to bypass the pain. So at times it feels like you have to choose the less pain, correct? Or you choose it based on the last part of the statement, which is faith is what is to come. There has to be a faith in something to come. Or you can't make a decision. You can't move forward. If you don't have faith in what's to come and the purpose that's come, you can't move forward. You'll constantly bounce between both pains and be stuck. So then your next step, as you let go of what was, that is, you're going to experience a lot of pain walking through that. There's a lot of cleansing that has you let go of what was. Because if you don't let go of what was, you're going to continue to keep the perception that everybody was those unhealthy relationships. So there's a really part of it, what for me it was experience is letting go what was. Because you in your mind, once you realize what is, now you got to let go of what was. But somewhere along the line, you're still looking in the rearview mirror. And you're hoping they come back, that they would, there's some type of justice or fairness because they should come back and accept responsibility. And you also have a hope of moving forward that you can restore it. You still never let go of the restoration. You want restoration would be a better word. You want restoration to happen. So you're looking in the rearview mirror, focusing on, are they coming up the lane?
Which goes back to where you said the first step is to accept what is. Because when you accept what is, you're not going to look back.
But you almost have, and then you're right, you go back to it again.
Because you haven't accepted it yet.
Because you haven't accepted it yet.
The first step is to accept what is, and then you can let go of what was.
Yeah, and that is exactly where the emotionally cleansing goes back to once you, if you can let go, you have to go back to accept it, what is, and emotionally cleanse it, and really feel everything, the violation.
Yes.
But it was too painful because, again, the trauma hits you that brought things to the surface, and it's almost too painful to really feel that reality. So you take it in doses. You able to accept pieces of it. As you continue to move forward in faith, you're still going back and accepting the true violation that happened to you. You accept it, but there's a next step on that is you cleanse it too. You feel it. You embrace it. You have to really feel in that dispensation what was.
And then you can have faith in what is to come, which then brings back hope.
Right. And that's where you're able to let go. Though. But if you don't fully cleanse, you're going to continue to reproduce the same violation. Or you're going to falsely accuse people around you and label them as that unhealthy relationship.
You're going to look through your lens. If you don't cleanse it, your lens is going to come out on everybody else. I would agree with that.
You're going to look through, and then you're also going to look behind your back all the time. Who's going to get me next? Except for when you know what it is and accept it, you're able to then recognize not people. Again, this is not about people, about a potential toxic relationship for yourself. And what is toxic relationship? A relationship, in order to maintain it, means to forsake your core values or be in a role that is not who you are, to force you to be something you're not. Square peg in a round hole.
Yes. Yep.
So if you don't really face what is, you're going to repeat it and repeat it. And it's never about people. Because at the end of the day, it's about what's toxic for you. What removes your faith for the future.
It's really about principle. We've always talked about that. True leadership is making decisions based on principles, not on people. And so when you can start so it's not about people. It's just the fact that if you have to compromise your principles and, lose your core values just to stay in this relationship, then the principle of that is the relationship isn't healthy for either one of you. It's not healthy for either one of you. Relationships are about flourishing. They're not about pouring, drowning each other. They are about flourishing. And if you're not flourishing in a relationship, then it's obviously not a relationship that's meant for you.
And true relationships are reciprocable. They're mutuality.
They are.
They're not, again, we talked before, they're not a superior and
inferior.
A subordinate.
Yes.
Yeah, superior and inferior. Moving forward in faith is putting your faith in reality, willing to look at the whole picture, willing to look at everything, looking how it affects you emotionally, spiritually, mentally, physically. It's the holistic way of looking at the future. Just not your narrow perception, my narrow perception of what I think it should be.
When it comes to letting go and obviously accepting what is and letting go, when we're looking to moving forward into the future, we are stuck. We get stuck in this area because we're holding on to some kind of belief that we're not willing to let go of. We're holding on to possibly what should be, or we're holding on to the fact that this is all I deserve, kind of what we talked about. So again, this is a very simple quote, but it's very profound. It is the difference of what makes you from being all you can be or keeps you where you're not growing at all.